Have you ever felt like a spectral presence in your own family? An unseen shadow cast behind the brilliance of someone who could seemingly do no wrong? That's been my life in a nutshell, growing up alongside my illustrious brother, the golden child, the apple of my father's eye. His name's Jamie, but let's just call him the sun. It always seemed that every room he entered was immediately brightened by his presence, leaving me, Max, to simply bask in the warmth of his shine, or freeze in the shade, depending on who you ask. The anticipation of Jamie's wedding had sent a ripple of excitement through our family, his upcoming nuptials the highlight of the year. Meanwhile, I was trying to blend in with the wallpaper, unnoticed and undisturbed. But not attending was never truly an option. My father's thunderous voice made that clear. "You'll go to your brother's wedding, or your tuition payments are over," he declared without a hint of hesitation, the tension hanging in the air like an electrified storm cloud. But here's an intriguing twist for you. What happens when the ignored child finally disrupts the narrative? What if, out of nowhere, the shadow flickers with its own light? It turned out I had a card up my sleeve, and my revelation was going to change the script they'd grown so comfortable with. With a casual shrug, I dropped it into our conversation one afternoon and watched as his expression shifted from the dead certainty of a general to the rare surprise of a subject being dethroned. "You might want to rethink that ultimatum," I said, my voice calm, belying the emotional avalanche within. "Because I'm actually earning more than you do." The shock silenced him. Suddenly, that tidbit expanded like a mushroom cloud of astonishment, the edges of which touched my father and my brother, the sun, in ways I never expected. In that moment, I wasn't just the shadow trailing after the sun. I was Max, casting light of my own. The deep-seated reverence my father had for Jamie had always been a source of quiet frustration for me. How does one compete with perfect? The answer, it seems, is simple: you don't. You forge your own path, irrespective of others' expectations and familial hierarchies. His favoritism had always been blatant, a glaring spotlight on Jamie while I was pushed off to the sidelines. It wasn't just about going to the fancy college I'd wanted, Prestige University, its name like a far-off dream, only to be nudged firmly towards the local option so that dear Jamie wouldn't feel eclipsed. What lay beneath my father's demands was far more than a desire to see me attend a wedding. It was a compulsion to keep the family's manufactured image intact, at the cost of individuality. But those were budgeted optics I wasn't willing to finance any longer. So, when I dropped the bombshell at the dining room table about my financial success, the chain of command wobbled, offering a glimpse of life unfettered by traditional shackles. That's how I decided to face this family event. Pretending everything was perfectly fine became my survival tactic, the walls of stoicism shielding the simmering storm beneath. The delicate facade I had to maintain was less for their sake and more for mine. If asked, "What of your father now?" I'd simply say, "I'm ready to rewrite my own story." Title: A Tale of Two Siblings and a Family Divide. Settling into the ambience of fall in 2023, as the crisp golden leaves gently carpeted our front yard, I found myself entrenched in a familial battle that seemed to deepen with each passing year. I am Sawyer Thompson, a 22-year-old who has always wrestled with being the shadowed figure in my family's narrative. My brother, Dylan, the golden child, had his wedding scheduled for October 15th, an event my father insisted I attend, even if it meant leveraging my college tuition to ensure my presence. Growing up in Richmond, Virginia, I was routinely overlooked in favor of Dylan. My father, Robert Thompson, has never hidden his preference for his firstborn. It was always about Dylan's accomplishments. His soccer trophies lined the living room shelves, and every honor roll and certificate of achievement was quickly framed and displayed. Meanwhile, my achievements barely garnered a glimpse, hidden in the corner of our family life. The latest episode in our sibling saga came with Dylan's impending nuptials to his college sweetheart, Natalie, a wedding that was set to be a production worthy of a grand, historical melody. The wedding, taking place at the opulent Jefferson Hotel, promised an assembly of exquisite florals, gourmet dining, and a string quartet. Yet, the shimmer of elegance did nothing to mask the fissures within our family. You see, my acceptance into Stanford University a year prior had been a momentous occasion for me, a testament to my own capabilities beyond the shadow my family often cast. But to my father, the news was more liability than victory. Local college, he'd insisted, a mantra that prioritized the status quo of familial favor over my personal growth. His reasoning was an indelible reminder of the favoritism deeply ingrained: we don't want Dylan to feel inadequate in any way. Faced with the ultimatum over Dylan's wedding, I decided to shatter the carefully curated illusion of my parents' patriarchal control. What my father didn't know, or perhaps refused to acknowledge, was the reality that my skills and dedication in tech development and freelance coding had already secured a financial independence he couldn't threaten. Last summer alone, I managed to pull in earnings surpassing his annual salary. The revelation of my financial security triggered a stunned silence in our last discussion. My mother, Olivia, her eyes softening in understanding, gripped my hand beneath the dining table. I had her tacit support, though voicing this over familial harmony was something she rarely risked. "Dad," I said, leaning back in my chair with a calculated nonchalance, "I appreciate everything you've done, but financially, I'm covered. I choose my destiny." But the choice remained: attend or don't attend. On my part, it wasn't driven by resentment toward Dylan. He and I had navigated our relationship like cautious diplomats. Dylan was never intentionally malicious. Rather, he was a passive benefactor of my father's favoritism, a dynamic he often seemed oblivious to, caught up in the accolades showered upon him. As I prepared to board my flight back to California for the semester, I wrestled with divided loyalties, a fixture of brotherly love against my own emerging independence. Could I, with clarity, observe my brother's greatest day as merely a spectator, applauding as I was trained to do, or was there more to this chapter of my life? To my brother's wedding, I hold no ill will, nor do I wish to steal his thunder. Yet, a voice that persistently calls for my own identity now challenges the narrative set by my family. As the story unfolds, I'm inclined to find a balance, carving a path where familial ties and personal aspirations can coexist without one eclipsing the other. In this familial haze of expectations and choices lies the evergreen question: who am I amidst this landscape of favoritism and individuality? For now, at least, the answer resides softly in my pursuit of growth, where I lay the foundation for a new chapter, irrespective of where family divides or reconciliations may lead us. Complete Part 2. Sawyer navigates the complexities of identity and family, fashioning a future without relinquishing the familial past. Stay tuned for more adventures in the heart and mind of the second son. In the world of family dynamics, respect and equality often find themselves rattling within the constraints of tradition and favoritism. This isn't just a case of one golden child eclipsing the rest. It's about how such imbalances can skew perspectives and corrode the core of a family unit. Let's weave deeper into Tessa's tale, our protagonist, who stands at the crossroads of duty and self-discovery. Her father, Mr. Edwards, lives within an unyielding conviction that has long shackled any attempt at impartiality within the Edwards household. The shades of bias draped over his vision meant that her brother, Alex, with his luminous smile and stellar achievements, became the sun around which the family revolved. Yet in focusing entirely on Alex's brilliance, Mr. Edwards failed to appreciate the unique luster that Tessa herself possessed, one that didn't fade in the shadow but rather stood as a testament to inner strength and resilience. While Mr. Edwards bullies about tuition and familial duty, Tessa finds herself at a pivotal juncture. Standing resolute with the realization that her accomplishments no longer need the family's forfeitable approval, she reveals her self-earned independence through financial means, a stride that blindsides her father and rewrites their relationship dynamic. It was an assertion, as vibrant as any formal accolade, symbolizing a break from the paralyzing need for validation. However, this triumph wasn't merely a financial breakthrough. It painted in vivid colors the depths of her self-worth. Tessa had always viewed her educational pursuits as a ticket to both escape and transformation, a metaphorical chisel not only carving her own path but also chipping away at the unyielding barriers of preconceived expectations set by her family. Mr. Edwards' insistence on local college attendance was supposedly rooted in avoiding discord. "Don't let your brother feel inferior," he would echo. But these words held a mirror to a deeper insecurity: the fear of imbalance and, perhaps subconsciously, the breach of a long-standing familial hierarchy. This was a hierarchy designed not out of malice but rather a generational legacy too ingrained to dismantle without causing ripples. But let us not forget Alex himself. Behind every charismatic leader lies nuances of uncertainty. The public face of confidence often masks shadows of doubt, and in moments away from the glaring spotlight, Alex struggles with the expectations of perpetual success. Tessa's revelation wasn't just a familial shift for him, it unlocked a seldom-voiced fear that all achievements could be dimmed by unexamined assumptions and biases. As the tale unfolds, Tessa grapples with understanding how growing into one's identity isn't solely about personal victories but finding equilibrium between self and collective identity. In challenging deep-rooted bias, Tessa begins to navigate the intimate maze of redefining familial cohesion. It's a journey that reveals the intricate weave of respect, mutual and self-respect, that flourishes when siblings step beyond comparison and parents solemnly honor each child's singular journey. Ultimately, this narrative examines the seismic shifts and subtle tremors wrought by self-discovery and the courage to disrupt an entrenched belief system. Tessa learns that real growth often involves confronting cherished myths and, through vulnerability and communication, fostering an environment where each member feels seen in their unfiltered narrative. Respect never blossoms in silence or complacency. It germinates amid the dialogue where foundational truths are both challenged and celebrated, revealing a landscape where every voice not only matters but resonates. And as Tessa begins to stitch together threads of understanding, she invites her family to not simply attend a wedding mandated by obligation, but to choose participation in the emerging fabric of equality and recognition that considers every member invaluable. There's no absolute resolution here. Life rarely affords such simplicity. But along this complex path, Tessa embarks upon a relentless pursuit of harmony. In doing so, she unwittingly becomes a catalyst for change within the Edwards family, igniting a light that neither shadows nor illuminations can extinguish. Through balance and empowerment, Tessa exemplifies why the scales of respect and individuality must weigh evenly for any family story truly to progress. Title: The Unburdened Truth. Part 4. The Vindication. Stepping out of the shadows of my father's manipulative indifference felt like tearing through the heavy drapery that had veiled my life for years. My foot had hesitated on the creaky stairwell of that house of broken dreams as I contemplated the revelation I'd just unleashed. "You know what, Dad?" had become my battle cry, a declaration of independence. In every ounce of my voice, in every quiver of my heart, I had cast aside the chains he so expertly used to bind me to his myopic vision. My golden brother, Oliver, had been the apple of his eye from the day he cried out his first wail. Lavished with praise and showered in privileges that should have belonged to both of us, he basked lazily in the sun of our father's undying approval. I, on the other hand, was merely a shadowy backdrop to his luminescence, a forgotten constellation in the vast family firmament. Returning from the wedding was like surfacing for air after a long dive. The ceremony had been the perfect stage, not just for Oliver to flaunt his domestic bliss but for me to unveil the truth that I, Lila, had meticulously kept under wraps. My father, of course, had continued on with his paternal monologue, so lost in his idealization of the family mythos that he probably didn't even notice that the plates I held had shattered across the kitchen floor. You see, my decision to safeguard my financial independence wasn't just rebellion, it was salvation. Drowning silently beneath their expectations would never have allowed me to find footing. I had secured a career, filled my life with meaningful work, and built a fortress of self-worth that their dismissive glances could never penetrate. My education at a prestigious university had armed me, not with trophies to gather dust, but with unshakable confidence. On the night of the revelation, the evening air wrapped the house like a thick quilt, cloying my senses as I stepped into the chaos stirred by my declaration. My mother, dear, sweet, complicit mother, cast nervous glances between father and I, her delicate fingers tracing the tablecloth as if searching for courage beneath it. Oliver, his smile as gilded as the custom cufflinks he wore, muttered something about jealousy, surely only half heard by those who were present. "That's none of your business anymore," I said, my voice steady as the North Star. "My life is mine to pilot, not yours to steer." The incredulity painted across my father's face was an artwork I had waited years to see. It was as if my voice had breathed fire into a cold winter's night, dissipating the icy fog that had long settled in the corners of our family home. "What about family loyalty?" he countered, his voice laced with desperation hidden behind a veneer of authority. The irony of his words echoed through me like a hollow wind whispering through barren trees. Loyalty, a concept he twisted into condemnation whenever it suited, a currency traded only within the boundaries of his expectations. The narrative that unfolded then, in his attempts to regain control, was one I had rehearsed countless times in my mind. A calculated defense of the status quo he'd wrapped my life in. But with a simple breath, I dispersed those illusions. The smile that edged at my lips was not of cruelty but of understanding the liberty I had fought tooth and nail to claim. Striding through the threshold, leaving them to simmer in the stew of their outdated ideals, I felt an unburdening. The breeze that rustled the trees in the driveway felt like whispered applause from all those who, like me, had ever dared diverge from a path set by others. My car's reflection gleamed with promise under the moonlight, a silver chariot to carry me onward to the life of my design. The road stretched before me like an unwritten chapter. Every mile I put between myself and that abode of misguided legacy was a syllable of liberation, every turn an inflection of new beginnings. As the stars blinked approvingly above, I knew I wouldn't be alone. My path was steeped in truth, the compass of my heart unerring. The tale of Lila, the UN golden child, was one that would continue to carve destinies beyond the shallow confines of family rivalry. No longer would I be a sideline spectator in my own life. Now, the world was my audience, but more importantly, I was the author of an empowered story. As the night painted my journey in midnight hues, I was reminded of one undeniable truth. While love may not always come packaged in the forms we expect or from the quarters we anticipate, it remains an unyielding force. And in that moment, unfettered by history and limitless in purpose, my spirit soared, free and unchained. Certainly. Here's the fifth part with a new spin. In the aftermath of that tension-filled argument, I found myself sitting in my room, the walls echoing with memories of past resentments. My father's words reverberated in my mind, a relentless drumbeat of his preferential treatment for my golden sibling. It had always been that way. Adrian, my illustrious brother, could do no wrong in our father's eyes. The wedding invitation felt more like a summons to watch the climax of our lifelong saga of sibling rivalry. As I pondered the delicate balance of familial expectations and personal aspirations, a resolve began to harden within me. I wasn't going to allow a lifetime of accumulated grievances to dictate my future. I gathered my thoughts, channeling them into an unwavering determination to carve my path, free from the shadows cast by family dynamics. The following day, I sat down with my father in the living room, the morning light casting long shadows across the patterned carpet. My heart thudded with each passing second as I prepared to unveil my decision, a choice that could potentially sever the ties in ways more profound than I intended. "Dad," I started, choosing my words carefully, "I've thought a lot about your demand that I attend Adrian's wedding, and I've decided I won't be going. I understand the consequences you're threatening, but I need you to realize that my future isn't a pawn to be leveraged at your whim." He looked at me, disbelief etching lines across his face. "You're making a mistake, Alex," he replied, his voice laced with both incredulity and frustration. "Family is everything. Without it, what do you have?" "Respect, Dad," I countered. "Respect is everything. I've been overlooked for too long, and it's time I stand for myself. I'm proud of what I've achieved, and whether or not you recognize that is entirely up to you. But I won't let it define me." There was a long pause, each second stretching into an eternity. I watched as his expression shifted, flickers of understanding mingling with his paternal stubbornness. This was a momentous gamble, and I knew it. I was well aware of the fissures such a stand might create. But the alternative, to live in silent compliance, was an existential suffocation I refused to endure. Finally, he spoke, a note of resignation tinging his voice. "I see," he murmured, nodding slowly, as if acknowledging for the first time the weight of the patterns we've been entangled in for years. "If that's what you believe you need to do, then so be it." The relief that flooded through me was unexpected, as if a dam had broke, allowing a rush of emotion to cleanse away the layers of accumulated resentment. This newfound liberation was bittersweet, marked by the knowledge that such stands are never made in isolation. They ripple through the fabric of family. In the days that followed, a quiet peace settled over me. I remained true to my course, attending to my studies and focusing on the dreams I'd nurtured in those moments when familial expectations felt oppressive. And while the spectre of Adrian's pending nuptials loomed, I found solace in the certainty of my decision, one that was mine alone. As for my father, our relationship took on the quality of a stilted dance, tentative, cautious, yet underpinned by a fragile hope. Perhaps, with time, there would be healing, a mutual recognition that acceptance and respect are the bedrocks of love. Until then, I was content with the knowledge that by choosing my path, I had embraced my autonomy, charting a course where the dictate of another no longer held sway over my life. In the quiet of those reflective days, I leafed through my acceptance letter to the prestigious university, the emblem of my defiance and my future. It represented more than an academic opportunity. It was the compass by which I intended to navigate the uncharted waters of my ambitions, free from the constraints of another's dreams. With clarity, I began drafting a letter to my brother, extending my sincere wishes for his happiness. In doing so, I acknowledged that while our paths were different, they need not be in opposition. This was my olive branch, a token of peace in the intricate tapestry of our family's saga. And as the days went by, I felt the winds of change whisper to me the songs of a future untethered, alive with the promise of endless possibilities. My father demanded I attend my golden brother's wedding, threatening to cut my tuition. They were shocked when I revealed I earned more than him. My father has always treated me as the child in the family that is overlooked. He was simply infatuated with my brother. He continues, "You know what? I don't care if you got accepted to some prestigious college. You have to go to the local college because we don't want your brother to be jealous of you. So you know what, guys?" I pretended everything was fine. I replied, "You know what, Dad?" As the words hung in the air, my mind raced. How had our family dynamics come to this point? A life where achievements were marred by envy and comparison. Deciding to step back, I began to question the validity of motivations dictated by fear of resentment. My father, Thomas, refused to see the injustice of his actions. His unwavering focus on Ryan, my brother, had created an unspoken hierarchy within our family, an unfortunate legacy of favoritism. Yet here I stood, at a crossroads, empowered by independence and the knowledge that I alone held the key to my future. Despite harboring bitterness, I aimed to find resolution, not conflict. Faced with my father's ultimatum, I chose to rise above the coercion. College offered more than education. It promised an escape, a place where I could define myself, free from familial constriction. Therefore, I decided to forge my path, knowing it was a step toward authenticity and self-discovery. The ability to fund my education independently became both my shield and my badge of honor. Although this decision soured our family ties in the short term, it ultimately reshaped our relationship. Gradually, through subtle shifts and new perspectives, my father's perception began to evolve. It was not an easy transition. However, my determination to be seen as more than a rival to my brother eventually bore fruit. Ultimately, the tension served as a catalyst, a necessary disruption of long-standing patterns. It taught me the significance of standing firm in the face of adversity, the value of self-worth, and the courage to redefine relationships. This wasn't just a victory for me personally. It was a quiet revolution for our family. And so, if faced with a similar dilemma, remember, you are your greatest advocate. Prioritize your dreams, because respecting yourself is the first step toward gaining true respect from others. Embrace your narrative and don't fear taking the reins of your journey. Thank you for listening to my story. For more insightful tales and life lessons, make sure to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more captivating stories.